Welcome to episode 225 of Silver Lining for Learning. I am one of your co-hosts, Lydia Cao from University of Toronto, joined by my fellow co-hosts, Kurt Bonk from Indiana University, Punya Mishra from Arizona State University. And on this International Women's Day, I am especially thrilled to bring you a conversation that celebrates the incredible work women educators are doing to shape the future of AI education. Today, we're exploring everyday AI, an innovative professional development program that's empowering teachers to bring artificial intelligence literacy into middle and high school classrooms. I'm honored to be joined by three remarkable educators, Racquel Herring, Wanda Jones, and Kate Moore. So let's begin by having each of you introduce yourself and tell us about what everyday AI is and what is your role in it. Shall we start with Kate?
Great. Hi. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on this podcast into this community. My name is Kate Moore. I'm a research scientist at the MIT STEP Lab, and I'll say a few words about Everyday AI, the project, just to give some background, and then I'll pass the microphone to my illustrious friends and colleagues, Wanda and Racquel, who are both educators who are leading the Everyday AI project. So I'll say briefly that Everyday AI is, as you said, Lydia, a teacher professional development program, also referred to as a PD, for advancing teacher AI literacy. It's a National Science Foundation funded research project with the specific aim of understanding how to best advance teacher AI literacy. So I'll tell you briefly about the PD, and if there's time later, I can tell you a little bit about the curriculum that it's built upon and some of the research findings. But just at its core, I'll say that Everyday AI is an in-service teacher PD program that aims to prepare educators like Wanda and Racquel to make AI literacy accessible and relevant and meaningful to the daily life of everyday middle school or high school learners. So what that means is that Everyday AI is all about advancing teacher AI literacy to give teachers, one, a fundamental understanding of AI technical concepts, AI-related ethics, and how AI impacts careers and futures. And two, we want to give teachers a competency with AI concepts in ways that are relevant to becoming an effective teacher of foundational AI concepts, as well as an informed citizen and a critical consumer of AI. So we do this by preparing teachers to teach AI concepts in their classrooms through these three waves of a PD. So it begins with what we call the AI book club, which is just what it sounds like. It's a book club that introduces teachers to foundational AI concepts using a scaffolded approach that introduces concepts through a shared reading of portions of a book. We use Artificial Intelligence, A Guide for Thinking Humans by Dr. Melanie Mitchell. And then the AI Book Club creates time for teachers to discuss and reflect on the reading synchronously together in a community of peers. And then we allow teachers time to explore some of the related concepts as if they're just student learners, engage in the activities in the curriculum. And the curriculum we're using is called the Developing AI Literacy curriculum. And then ultimately, all that's building towards creating time for teachers to reflect on their learning experiences and discuss how they might implement the concepts and activities and lessons in their classrooms. And that's followed by the second wave, which is called the practicum, which also is, as it sounds, it's an opportunity for teachers to practice teaching AI concepts by co-teaching with a small group of peers from the AI book club. The practicum gives teachers an opportunity to think about how to apply the knowledge they gleaned from the book club in an authentic and supportive learning environment. And then the third wave, the final wave, all these experiences are reinforced through the academic year through these webinars, which are designed to sustain the everyday AI teacher community by bringing teachers together as a community of practice. So I'll pause there, and I wanted to just offer that information so Wanda and Racquel can share some of their experiences being part of that project. So I'll pass the microphone to Wanda. Wanda and I started working together, Wanda, in 2021? You were the first teacher to join the Everyday AI project, one of the first in the community of teachers joining the project. And we've been working together ever since. It's been a pleasure. So, Wanda.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Sorry about my voice. I'm Wanda Jones, and I been teaching computer science for the last 25 years. Middle school, do a little adjunct work on the local college area. Um, it's really it's really been exciting to work with the AI program. And speaking of the practicum, that was like a 2 week. It was a online camp format where we had students virtually, and we got to see if the curriculum would relate to the students, and we got really good feedback. So it was a good training ground for before we were to introduce the curriculum to our students. And after that year of exper- uh, experiencing the curriculum with the students, um, I came back to the program as a facilitator, and I was able to introduce a coworker, Racquel Herring, um, and she actually went through the process as well, and I helped guide her, so that I could say, hey, when you get to this part or this part of the curriculum, try this, and she's really good and innovative, so she would say, well, maybe we could try something like this. So it wasn't um, uh, uh, I am the leader and I'm the mentor. It was a more of an exchange, and I was able to learn from her, and we were both able to try to give it our best effort, and the students really gained a lot of information during that process. I guess Raquel, it's your
Oh,
turn.
okay. Hi, Raquel Herring. So I've been teaching a little over 25 years. I started out as an elementary school teacher, 1 through 6, and I came to middle school, and I was pretty much like the science teacher in elementary school, ran the labs, science coach, all of that. But when I came to middle school, I came in as a reading teacher because you always need a reading teacher. So with the first year, our school like needed someone to teach a science class because something happened to a teacher. So from that experience teaching that science class, the principal was kind of like, oh, you're pretty good at science. So from there, it kind of opened the door to me teaching in my passion. Um, Ms. Jones introduced robotics to me, said, hey, why don't you come on? They want to introduce robotics to our school. She knows that I lean towards science. So I took the workshop, and with that, we got a robot for the school, just one, and then we started a club before school. And then it led to me start teaching more tech classes at that point. So I started with before school club, after school club, and then went from one class to up to 5 classes, including in middle school, I'm teaching my first year about a high school robotics class. So the program grew. And as Wanda said, that she introduced also the AI to me. So she's been a great mentor. So with her experience and the success that she had, she brought me on board. And what I really liked a lot about the program was that we had a book club. And so it eased me into AI, just learning the background, the experience, collaborating with teachers from all over the United States. And they threw us into, and I say that they threw us into that summer practicum where we actually were being recorded, and we had the facilitators like Miss Jones and other teachers watching and providing feedback to us as we taught the lesson. So it was a little nerve-wracking, teaching so long, and then, have someone like really literally observe you teaching. But actually, it was like the best thing. It was so reflective in my practice. It enriched my pedagogy. It made me open to like, hey, I don't care if someone comes and watch me teach. Uh, and that's something I bring to other teachers, that when you have observations, it's to actually help enrich you and enhance your craft. Nothing more than that. That's what I got from it. So the AI not only taught me the curriculum, but it taught me other things on the back end as an educator. So the curriculum, the setup from the practicum, the book club, the practicum, and then the implementation, just that learning cycle was beneficial just to me as a professional.
Thank you so much. It's really amazing to hear how teacher mentoring other teacher, observing each other to teach, and they really enrich the pedagogies from there in such a safe and inclusive way. I know Kurt has a question, and Punya.
Well, it's
Kurt, I just
yeah.
wanted a quick not a logistical, but sort of a timing question. When did this program start, Kate? What did you say?
Yeah, so we started in two ways. The professional development project that was funded by the NSF started in 2021.
Okay.
And we concluded the research component in 2023, but continued sort of exploring and piloting and growing the community up until 2024.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Then just to finish answering your question, the curriculum, which I haven't had a chance to talk about yet, but I'd love to if there's this moment, which is called the Developing AI Literacy Curriculum, was created a year earlier in 2020. And it's upon that curriculum that leaders in AI education literacy like Wanda and Racquel sort of built the work they're talking about in their classrooms. Yeah.
Perfect. That I'll come back. I have a question, but I'll let Kurt go. I just needed to sort of get a sense of the timeline there. So Kurt, go.
Oh, I love the notion of waves. I have an article with David Wiley, a pretty well-known person in open ed. He was on our show previously. We wrote about the waves of technology coming at us, and that we need to not just react to these waves. We need to be more proactive and thinking about how technology can solve our problems, not about the next shiny star or, a glistening object that we need to all grab and, salivate over. So I like waves, but, that works for me. But some people talk about such things as components. Some people, you would use the word cycle. So different ways to describe what you're doing. So maybe I have a couple part question. So I have a model, I have a couple of models and frameworks, and one of them is called Read, Reflect, Display, and Do, R2D2. It's my Star Wars model. And your waves, your first two waves are the first, are the first two parts of R2D2 is your first wave. So read, reflect. And that's what they're doing. And discuss. They're discussing, they're reflecting, they're reading, they're thinking, they're doing all these things. And then you've got the second wave, right? And you've got them trying it out and getting mentored and sharing with others. So that's the display and do side. Operationalizing what you've just learned. Now I'm saying R2D2 model is missing something. It doesn't have the third wave in it. I'm missing the professional development side of it. So it's a little critique on
well, learning is very social, Kurt. It's very social, and it's very hard to teach artificial intelligence, right? And Wanda and Racquel can speak to some of the challenges that you guys have experienced, but from just somebody who's been working closely with teachers over the past few years, interviewing them, it's pretty clear that teaching AI concepts is isolating, right? Sometimes you're the only teacher in your building teaching this stuff. Sometimes you're the only teacher in your whole district. Some of our teachers, they're the only teacher teaching about artificial intelligence in their state that semester. Right. And so there aren't opportunities like other teachers have to reach out across the hall and see, how did you teach that? Or what are you doing? Oh, did you have that happen to you? That happened to me too. Those collegial moments where you're able to have peer-to-peer connection and reflection are so vital, particularly when you're doing work in an emerging technology-driven educational focus area like with artificial intelligence. So we were seeking to do that through everyday AI. So you nailed it, Kurt, right? We do have these components that are part of your framework, but we're also really leaning into this social learning and through developing a community of practice. So that's why we have these webinars that appear. You were kind of leading up to this in your question, Kurt. We have these webinars every month. It was like these Saturday podcasts. You come together and you connect the community. But in these podcasts, we have these two, and I'll call these components. We have two components of these podcasts. I'm calling them podcasts by mistake. My apologies. These webinars. One is community connections, and the other is resource and skill building. right? And we have these two components because we want to make sure webinars are valuable to teachers. They have a reason to come and a reason to show up. They get something out of coming. So these community connections really focused on creating opportunities for teachers to hear each other's voices and hear stories from each other's classrooms, right? Wanda and Racquel might be smiling because some of these stories are very funny, don't do this stories. But they were very helpful. That's the kind of stuff that you'd want to chat about over coffee, in the teacher lounge, and getting kind of real world authentic insights into these practices. And then the second component, this resource and skill building, is where facilitators like Wanda, who returned to the second year with classroom experience rich from a year of teaching the curriculum, would come and share refresher activities from the daily curriculum to kind of help teachers who are implementing a year-long curriculum remember all the components, but also researchers like me would share updates on new AI technologies, and then facilitators and researchers like Wanda and myself would answer questions that teachers had. And I think that's been really empowering. It's been amazing seeing like Racquel really grow in this space where you can reach out to Wanda, who's there in your building now, which wasn't the case for our first cohort. And to connect with Racquel, as sort of a leader in AI education literacy, by connecting you to MIT and Boston College and teachers, I think you said this, Racquel, from across the country who are all teaching together. So it's been absolutely doing that work you're talking about, Kurt, with reading, reflecting, displaying, and doing, but connecting this community of educators together, I think has been what Everyday AI is really all about.
Yeah, and I teach a social cultural theory. I developed a course on Neo Vygotsky's social constructivist, blah, 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 blah. So I'm totally in tune with what you're saying there. I was going to ask a question, but I'll hold off. I think I'll hold off until after Punya talks a bit and ask you, but I want a factual question. You mentioned states. Are you in multiple states? And if so, what are those states that you're prominent in, your community is involved in? And then we can go over to Punya.
Yeah, we're currently working in California, New Mexico, New York, Florida, Virginia, and when we first started, we were also working in Illinois and Chicago. But I think teachers are still implementing Everyday AI in the daily curriculum in Chicago. But so yeah, we're working across the country, and the work to scale is continuing to grow. We're still talking with districts and states about growing Everyday AI. If anybody listening to this podcast is interested in Everyday AI, you can go to our website to learn more about how to reach out to somebody like Wanda or Racquel or anybody within the Everyday AI network who's been through the professional development experience, because they're ready to begin the process of leading the professional development experience. That's kind of the heart of what we do. So you go through the PD, and then once you've implemented in your classroom, we can train you as a facilitator so that our teachers can actually lead the professional development locally or nationally. So all that to say, feel free to go to the everydayai.org website and contact the project's leader, Irene Lee, and she can talk with you if you're interested in having an Everyday AI professional development program run in your district or your school. She can help you make that happen. So sorry to be self-promoting there, but
No. Actually, your headset must be linked to my headset, because that's twice you've asked questions before I had a chance to. So you're reading my mind. Literally, we normally ask at the end, how can they contact you and so forth. I was going to jump in. I'm going to ask you right at the start here. Before we go to Punya, I'll let Wanda and Racquel respond to this. Of those waves, of those components of the program, which is the hardest for you to implement and has taken the longest to figure out and get it to structure to work, and which have been relatively easy to implement? Both of you are muted, so whoever wants to jump in first, go ahead.
I'll jump in. This is Wanda. I feel that it depends on the kids. You know, normally we are elective teachers and the kids choose us. So we have all abilities. across the board in one room. You teach who comes in the room. And sometimes you have to make adjustments to the curriculum and accommodations to meet the needs of the students. So if I had to say which one was more difficult, it depends on the period, the group of students, implementing the curriculum. But I think the practicum was a little unnerving at first because it was kids that we didn't necessarily know, and different people that we had to just get used to that setting. But once we implemented the curriculum with our students, then it was just a matter of catering to, some things took a little bit longer than a suggested duration of the lesson. And that's an everyday thing for teachers. You have to figure out what works with your student. And we this is probably the only profession we get to constantly revise what we do, so in my opinion, that's how I feel about it.
Every day, every second, before you go to bed, when you wake up, revising, rethinking, reprocessing, right? Racquel.
Well, I actually have the same opinion because, like I said before, it was kind of unnerving. You're starting something new as a teacher and you don't have time to like practice it. So that practicum, I was just like thrown into the fire. And so I didn't know what to expect. However, it also was like the best experience at the same time because uh, I felt comfortable. If I made a mistake, it was okay. I had support. We had like breakout sessions for the kids, but also breakout sessions with the teacher. So if I'm in the midst of a lesson and I had a question or something went wrong, then the facilitators would jump in and then I could, make the correction or adjustment before I start part two of the lesson, the part three. So that way, it definitely was like the most challenging part, but then there were, um, safety nets embedded within it to assist me as I went on. Because when I teach, typically, I always like do a practice run. I mean, I would just even if I just talk to myself, I just go through it. But with the practicum, there was no dry run. You had to just jump right in. But there might have been a reason for that, and Kate may have to explain that. But it might have been a reason why that we could, adjust on the spot, and that might have been helpful to, enrich their research. But
Yeah,
as
I
far
can say a little bit about that when you're done, Raquel, but please
okay.
continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I figured that, that might have been. But as the more that I've been with the researchers, I kind of see some things that they implement um, to see the reaction so they can make adjustments. Because once you put the curriculum out there, you want to see all the different avenues so that a teacher, like you said, on an island by themselves, they know what to do. And then the facilitators can reach out and say, hey, if this happens, then you can do X, Y, and Z. So overall, that was the most challenging. But as far as my district and my school goes, everyone was so appreciative of the curriculum. They thought it was cutting edge, and they want our students to be successful and to get the latest and the greatest. And the AI actually fit right into that. So they're on board even to this day. Like, what are you guys doing? Anything new?
Also, really quick, this is Wanda again. The students, it was well received by the students. They were like, oh, you could hear them talking to each other about it, and their discussions changed, when we introduced the curriculum. So it was a good experience for them.
It's relevant to their futures.
Yeah,
Very relevant.
yeah. As I was saying, the everyday PD is preceded by this curriculum, by the Developing AI Literacy curriculum, which was developed in 2020 by Irene Lee, also Dr. Helen Zhang at Boston College, Safina Ali at the MIT Media Lab, and Dania Deapala, also at the MIT Media Lab at the time, were also both involved. And the curriculum also involved work from Blakely Payne and Fred Martin, as well as many other people, all coming together to kind of form this curriculum. The curriculum comprises, oh gosh, Wanda and Raquel, I think it's like 21 lessons, and it's over 30 hours of content. It's a lift. It's a heavy lift. But it's aiming to foster this AI literacy, where these lessons encourage learners to think about AI as a socio-technical system, with implications for you personally, but also for your career. And it encourages kids in sort of a playful way to think about societal implications of AI as well. So it's not just a technical curriculum. It also has this really strong social ethical component. Um, Kids, learn key concepts, but they also investigate AI tools to figure out how the tools might be biased. They look at data sets and algorithms and consider ways that you might mitigate some of the bias in these components of AI systems. What else, Wanda, Racquel? They discuss societal and ethical implications of biased AI systems, make connections to their daily lives, and they engage in this AI in my future career exploration activities that support young learners as they become aware of AI's impact on jobs. And these activities kind of encourage kids to recognize their own strengths and interests and realize the importance of developing technical skills in the context of ongoing change and adaptation in today's society. And I think that's particularly important. And I think I just bring it up because of something you just said, Kurt. I think that, some of the kids we work with, urban or rural settings, they have this idea that AI is going to replace them, right? That they can see AI having this tumultuous effect on the careers and jobs of their aunties and their dads and their moms. And so that they're thinking that, this is going to really make finding a job more difficult. And I think some of the great work that Wanda and Racquel and other teachers in the Everyday AI program have done is to help students, think deeply about their interests and what they'd like to be doing with their future careers, and then sort of helping them realize that, it's not that AI is going to be replacing those jobs, but learning how to work with AI tools can really help you situate yourself and set yourself up for success in the career force of the future.
You talk about AI ethics, and it gets us into critical thinking and the use of these tools. It's exactly what's showing up in all these surveys, what they need. So it's undoubtedly going to be a program that's going to be growing, and that's why providing the details that just provided to us in terms of length and other things, components, people listening to the show a month from now, 6 months, or a year from now are going to want that. So anytime you think of some specifics that you want to add in, feel free to do so, because it will help the people who listen down the road. We can't ask all the questions in this 1 hour that are important, but we'll try and ask as many as we can. Before Punya jumps in, Racquel or Wanda, did you have anything to add to what Kate has said?
Oh, I wanted to add that with the AI, where you're saying that how the students apply to their everyday lives, there's an activity in there where they have to sort through what's AI, what's not AI, and they've learned the criteria that it fits. And so they start applying that to their real life. How can they make it AI? How can they make it better? And Wanda didn't notice, but she had a recent contest in Minecraft, and they had this challenge where they had to I think clean the Everglades because we're in Florida. And so and they actually end up winning because they added to their Minecraft robot, and it had like an AI feature where it would sort through invasive species um, within the Everglades. And I was like, I know where they got that from. I know how they were able to use what they had in previous years from our classes, and they used this to win this particular contest because no one else had a robot that could do that, and they were like blew the judges away. So definitely that it stays with the kids because it's relevant, and really they just think it's cool, and they're able to use it. Remember that, Wanda?
Yeah, it's a tri-county battle now. We're representing the district against Miami and Palm Beach. So root us on, guys.
There you go. Awesome.
But also, what this conversation brings me to think back was the recognition of how AI biases affect the community, and also how the students interpret that bias. That was it could be difficult for teachers to teach about bias without getting personal and so forth, but kids are able to handle it. And also, they can then understand and interpret that it could affect them in other ways. So I thought that was important
And I wanted to
to
add
bring.
on to that with the bias because it is difficult to teach that. And so when I taught that lesson, I always bring up, I kind of survey the kids who likes to be the teacher's pet. They all want to raise their hands. Yeah, I want to be the teacher. And then like as and I explored how do you feel about it? It's great. And I said, but guess what? The teacher can only have one teacher's pet. How do the other people feel that's not the teacher pet? And then so from there, it kind of brought home what the bias is and how other groups are affected by it. Yes, we all want to be it, but what if we're not? And so you just have to, break it down to their level. And this AI curriculum opens the door to that. They give us that opportunity to make adjustments and basically feed off of our students' interests and their ability and even their dreams. So definitely, some of the concepts are quite, you know, above their age, as you might say, but we can break it down for them and relate it to something that they all know about.
I just want to build on that and say that, that's why we do the book club and the practicum, right? So that Racquel, Wanda, teachers in the project get this introduction to this technical content. So you have the background knowledge to talk to students about bias, which is like statistical and mathematical, as well as like sociocultural, right? And then at the end of each book club meeting, after we've practiced these activities, we take time to talk about how teachers might change the curriculum, right? We're all about modifying the material so that it's more equitable or accessible or inclusive for teachers' local communities. And there's been such amazing conversations that's come out of that. Wanda, I think, was the first teacher, and I can't believe it, that we didn't think about this before, but Wanda was the first teacher to say, did you notice that this activity you have where you're introducing decision trees has this very MIT centered idea of what winter is, right? We were teaching this activity that prompted students to make a decision tree to decide if a set of clothing was for winter or not. So the activity is called, Is It for Winter? Right. And so, of course, at MIT, we have snow at winter time. And, there's very specific attire. And Wanda, I think you were the first one to say, well, in Florida, our winters do not look like that. And it was a lovely example of not just how, AI structures can be made biased by the creators, but how the creators of the curriculum had imposed their own bias. And that is a fault of all curriculum designers, right? So one thing that's been so powerful is to, join this project with the daily curriculum, but then every day is all about empowering teachers to modify, right, and really make it much more culturally relevant. And you can see that in some of the work that Wanda and Racquel are talking about, because you change it. I think, Wanda, you ended up making that activity, is it dress code or not, which was hilarious.
Yeah, but it worked great.
It
I mean,
really
the kids were
does.
talking about decision trees, because that's a big issue here at our school, whether they wear the collared shirt or the khakis, and
Yes.
some kids want to wear sweatpants. So Kate went back and she was able to bring in graphics that was reflective of the outliers and the dress code, the optimal dress code that we would like the kids to wear. And they got it totally. The
So-
So
decision trees were
fun.
great.
Yeah.
So
Also,
And-
Kate, remember
Yeah.
the neural networks, how you introduced neural networks with the telephone game.
Yeah.
And, I mean, totally very hard concept. But
Yeah.
the
So
kids
we've
were
been
able
spinning off
to.
lots of questions and lots of answers, lots of discussion here. And Punya has been waiting to talk about curriculum, which we've kind of dabbled in already. Punya's got probably 3 or 4 more things in the last 20 minutes. So Punya, want to jump in here?
Sure, thank you. No, this is great. I have a couple of quick comments to make before I jump in to the particular question. I so appreciate this conversation on bias because some of the work that we've been doing with sort of these large language models, we are finding that they have been guardrailed. If you ask a direct questions, if you give an essay written by a student and you say this is written by an African American student versus a white student, it actually will give the scores pretty much at par. But if you ask the question somewhat differently, you say inner city versus elite private school, you start seeing differences. So these models, they have prevented them from the more obvious ones. The most interesting one we did where we gave a passage supposedly written by a student, which had some typographical spelling errors and stuff. It was about their preparing for studying for an exam. And in passing, it says, while I'm getting ready and I'm clearing up my notes, I listen to some music to get me in the right mood. The only word difference between two passages, in one case it said rap music, in the other case it said classical music. Statistically significant, every model ranked the one rap music lower. Even scarier was the text feedback that it gave had biases embedded through and through. And these models are being touted all over the world as if they are God's gift to humanity. They are not. They are incredibly weird and strange, and I don't think that we have truly sort of tried to understand the ramifications of some of the choices here. So which brings me to sort of my second comment slash question, which is, so the curriculum started in 2020, and we know in October or November of 2022 is when the world went batshit crazy about these large language models. What I really appreciate the fact that you are giving, you're starting with Melanie Mitchell's book and so on, because there is a history to AI. There
Yes.
is a history of the good old fashioned AI, which was the top down sort of decision tree kind of an approach. Neural networks had been sort of bubbling along and then they died for a while. And, you had all these expert systems. And then these neural network things come back with these large language models and the transformer technologies and so on, which is a very different kind of a thing. And there has been this sort of tension between, if you, I mean, I just, in fact, wrote a paper, just did the proofs last night. Um, Looking at this tension between sort of top down, like, that we could use this for instruction. So you look at like when Sal Khan talks about AI, it's like, oh, every kid is going to have a tutor and the tutor is going to be awesome. And then you have somebody like Seymour Papert who's using the same AI stuff, but it's much more for sort of creative, open-ended, playful learning, So there are these tensions that are in the history, which I think in the hype around it right now, we forget. And those are sort of things that are inherent to the technology that we need to understand. I love the fact that you talked about it in a sociocultural sense, because it's not a technology that's like an abstract thing. It's not a platonic ideal. You know what I mean? It is something that we humans are creating, and hopefully have a choice also to make it better. So I'm just curious about two things then. Given the fact that you've started this curriculum from before, and this hype has happened, now everybody and their grandfather is an expert on AI, right? Every product in the market has AI slapped on it. So what opportunities has it provided you? And I'd love to hear, Wanda and Racquel, do you see a greater interest now that this hype is around this? But also, what challenges has it brought to you? Because that hype has come with a lot, I mean, being hype with a lot of overblown rhetoric around what this technology can do. So I'd be curious to, and Kate, of course, from your perspective as well. But since Wanda, you and Raquel are there in on ground, what difference have you sensed in sort of the conversation around it, and how has it both helped and hindered the critical sort of approach that you're taking towards this technology, which is very different from, I think, some of the stuff that's being spouted about it. So anybody feel free to join in and yeah, your thoughts.
Well, from my perspective, because I teach from a foundational level. So when they bring these ideas to me, what AI can do, or is it AI or not, I kind of bring it back to, what's the data set? What's the algorithm? What's the prediction? I bring it back to them because they make the assumption that everything's AI or AI can solve everything. And in school, we do have a problem with students relying on AI to maybe answer questions or write essays and whatnot. And so it's just something that we have to embrace, not push them away from using AI, but then say if you're going to use it, use the outline version of it. Don't have them write the entire paper because you're going to use it. Just advise them that it's based on the data set. And I just tell them that if you're going to use it, think about all the other kids who are using the same information. What's unique about your response? So you kind of have to tie into that ethos where that they're thinking about what they can contribute in it's pretty much building a better citizen if you kind of look from that perspective, that what's right and wrong, and are you really giving us a true um, perspective of your ideas, or is it someone else? And it's just the training of that part of it, because they're going to go for the easy part. So so the challenge is to let them see how they can use it in a better way than just using it to, get through their homework or whatnot.
I can attest to that. In my classes, I try to, just as I treat AI as any other technology. We have to teach students how to use it and how to use it as a tool. Learning Microsoft Word is not going to it's only going to improve your form and style grade. It's not going to improve the content of your writing. But if we take that approach with AI and say, look, this is a tool that can enhance your life. And these are the safeguards that you need to know about. You need to understand that everything is not accurate. So, maybe you're having writer's block, like Racquel mentioned, use it as an outline. We're not going to encourage you to go in and have some AI tool speak for you. Use your voice. And that approach has helped a lot in my classes, because even my college students, you know, AI is becoming a component in everywhere I teach now. And in the large language models, and Kate can go and talk about more of that with the everyday curriculum, but it is an issue. It's here to stay. And the more we know, the more the students will be able to maneuver and navigate this environment.
Yeah, thanks for teaming me up for promoting the new unit that we created for daily on large language models. It's something that I created with the help of the community in 2024. Racquel and Wanda reviewed the curricular materials. Thank you very much for that help, ladies. And the goal with that new unit for the daily curriculum is to, one, introduce how these tools work, to introduce how you might use them in an academic setting critically. And three, we really wanted to address teachers' concerns and needs about large language models. So in early 2024, I think Wanda and Racquel, you also responded to this national survey that we sent out asking our teachers in our everyday community, what is it that you really want to know or need to know about large language models? And, a lot of the answers were, how does it work? How to use it in education? But some of them were also about what are the security risks? How can it be biased? And what are some things that we should be talking about with our administrators to make sure that our school district is using these tools responsibly? So we tried to design the curriculum around that. And those materials will be up on the Everyday website soon. I just really appreciate what Wanda and Racquel have said, because I think it speaks to the fact that the daily curriculum has laid this foundation of understanding that prepares teachers to be critical users of new emerging technologies like large language models or whatever technology is coming out next in the generative AI scope and field. I think there's many curricula out there that really help teachers and students learn about some of the technical concepts of artificial intelligence. But what I think makes the daily curriculum unique is that it really uses this ethics framing to expose learners to AI enhanced careers and relate AI to their daily lives and current events and real world problems in ways that engage students from diverse backgrounds and raise their perceptions of the relevance of AI in their daily lives. Right. So this is sort of ethics framed effort to make this material very relevant to the lived experiences in the daily lives of kids and teachers. And I think when you have that foundation, then it really tees up people to be ready to not just use these tools, as you were saying, Punya, but asking questions of how they work.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important, because I think what has happened in some ways is that the word AI is now used across so many different kinds of technologies, that, intelligent tutoring systems are one form of AI that they are using. And, if you look at like iPhoto or Google Maps, that's machine learning. Large language models are a different beast, probabilistic tokens, blah, blah, blah. And I think the more we explicate that, the more we understand the differences between them, because they're very different technologies. And I think one of the dangers that we run into now is a lack of basic understanding of what these things are. We just label them one thing, and that's problematic for a variety of reasons. I just want to make a quick plug, Kate, if you're interested. We've been developing some really interesting activities which are very simple to do around large language models, which reveal fascinating ways in which these models work. But also, one of my personal things is my work is around creativity. So I'm actually teaching this doctoral seminar now on human creativity and AI. And I am perpetually doing experiments where, like, I like doing typography. I work with Claude, where Claude writes poems about my typographical designs, and then we go back and forth and argue about the poem, and then I have these sort of like a beautiful typographical design with a poem written in collaboration with Claude. Now, to me, that's a really interesting example of how kids could be looking at this as well, not as a way of writing the essay for you, but rather as a jousting partner, right? And that's my first comment to Claude always is, I want you to be a critical friend. I don't want you to please me. We are going to do something great together. We start with that. And it's been a very interesting experience to play with these tools with that mindset. I'll just give one example, then I'll bump it off to Lydia. So there is a 19th century Urdu poet by the name of Ghalib, who is this amazing Sufi existential. I think he had depression. His poems are just brilliant sort of explications of human life. And I've always wondered that if he had lived in the 1960s and 70s, he would have been a heavy metal singer. If he had lived today, he would have been a rapper, because his wordplay, his nuance is so beautiful. So I could go to Suno and make a heavy metal version of one of my favorite poems of his. And I swear to God, that feels like Ghalib has come alive in my heart. And the fact that we can do these kinds of mashups and things like that with these large language models, to me, there is a liberatory aspect to it, I think, that students will grab onto and worry less about sort of the plagiarism issue, because there is way more fun to be had in creating things. And so I would love to extend this conversation offline, if you're interested. Almost everything I do is on my website, but I can point you to a few. And if you guys find it useful, great. If not, that's fine, right? It's cool. So anyway, thank you for the work that you do, and I will pass the ball to Lydia.
Before Lydia jumps in, Punya, that was a brilliant explanation. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of people listening to that, because it's very similar to what I was talking about on Tuesday. I gave a webinar for Contact North on 100 different pedagogical examples, and it's really thinking about how you can juxtapose what AI has produced and the human has produced, and have discussions wrapped around it and extended beyond it, and elaborations from it. And organization is basically getting people in different levels of higher order thinking to describe the conversations and collaborations that we're having with AI, and that's important. I'm sorry, Lydia, you wanted to jump in here.
Yeah, I thought that's a really important framing to think about, education also as a creation, that kids engage in these authentic tasks that of interest to them. They're creating something rather than ticking off a checklist of someone decide that they should complete it. So going back to the Everyday AI PD program, I'm really interested in this three-wave approach. And what are you thinking about in terms of sustainability of the PT program when the researcher is not there? And in what way do you think your program can potentially scale to benefit more teachers?
Thank you so much for that question. We are still trying to figure that out, right? So I think we have to acknowledge, and Wanda and Racquel, you probably agree with me, that the 3 waves model with the book club, the practicum, which is usually in the form of a summer camp, hosted at a library or after school program, and then the webinars, that's a big lift. That's a lot of hours. It's hard to attend every single book club. It's really nerve-wracking to teach kids who are not your kids in a summer camp AI concepts with other teachers who you may or may not know very well as your co-teachers, right? Wanda and Racquel opened with that being difficult. So we're very open to exploring versions of the Everyday AI program that are better at scale. We've done some work already in a few ways, which I can touch on briefly, but I'd love to hear Wanda and Racquel's thoughts about how we could scale the Everyday IPD to make it something that's a little more accessible for, a wide variety of audiences and represented and underrepresented communities in STEM or CS education, for example. But I'll say, as you're putting your thoughts together, we've done some really strong analysis of the components of Everyday AI and associated them with research outcomes to get a sense of, what were the most impactful from a quantitative measure perspective on, what was impactful on student learning outcomes, and from a qualitative perspective, or like what are teachers telling us and facilitators telling us are most impactful. So what we know is that coming together and having a shared reading experience and then engaging in those activities is really powerful. We also know that practicing, as Wanda and Racquel, you both said, that was really hard, but I appreciate doing it because I think otherwise, and Wanda and Racquel certainly would have prepared perfectly and sufficiently for their implementation, of course, but some teachers don't have time to prepare. So they just, they're walking into the classroom cold turkey, and the practicum gives them a chance to actually have that protected time to practice and prepare materials for the pedagogical work, right? Because there's, of course, content knowledge, but you really have to develop the pedagogical content knowledge to bring it really, the learning really into your classroom. So that's what the practicum does. And we've noticed that teaching practice is very, very helpful for that. But to do those things, you don't actually have to do, 54 hours of work. So one model that we're trying is this 1 week PD where we introduce just units 0 and 1 from the daily curriculum. Same format as the book club. There's a little bit of reading, teachers still engage in the activities, learners first, and then critically engage them afterwards. But in there, we also insert teaching practice where teachers are actually practice teaching to each other in some of the much more traditional ways that you often see schools of education training teachers to practice different lessons together. And then we follow teachers very through a very thorough and a little bit more extended webinar series, right? So instead of monthly, we're meeting a little more regularly every week, every twice a week. And that we found fits into what districts and state currently have for some teacher PD models where, you have this 1 week in person experience followed up by webinars. So that's one thing that we've piloted in a few states, and we've gotten positive feedback. Yeah, so thank you so much for that question. I did want to pass the microphone to Wanda and Racquel to see if you guys have advice about, what would you like to see with Everyday AI to make it a little more scalable, a little more accessible for broad audiences. What do you guys think?
I just wanted to bring up the fact that that last iteration where you had the video-driven knowledge base, where any of us could go and say, I forget, how did we do this before? Or were there any changes? What Kate did, they had a video series that were attached to all of the lessons, and it was available in a shared Google Drive, and you could access it anytime you need to. It's just like if you need to find something to how to change a fixture or something, you might want to go look on YouTube. Same kind of idea. And it was really great because even though we had the experience of going through the practicum and we had taught the curriculum, changes were made and you could see any updates, and it was great. So I really like that. And I don't know how you could implement it in your new format, but that really I think would be helpful for teachers.
You actually gave us that feedback, Wanda, and we put it on the website. So now we have this whole video series where it's me and Bea and Ihong demonstrating all the activities and summarizing them from the book clubs. Yeah, so you and a few other teachers really motivated us to do that. So that's already on the website. Just as a fun fact, many of those demo videos is me, and I sound like I'm whispering because my baby is napping next to me while I'm demoing the neural network activity, for example. So if I sound like a sleepy mama, that's because I am. Yeah.
Yeah, those
Raquel, what do you think? Yeah.
definitely I love the on-demand videos, that if I, forgot something or want to review something, just go back to the videos. But also I know with our district, they have where we can book appointments with one of like our facilitators if we have questions or want or invite them to one of our professional learning communities. So I'm not sure if you have it, but to have like a option for the district or a group to, book you guys for like a drop in, just to kind of keep it going.
Yeah,
So
we're hoping
getting,
to make that happen. Yeah, thank
Lydia,
you.
did you have a comment?
Yeah, what you said gave me an idea. Maybe you already thought about this idea. I feel like what's really like key in your approach is this community of teacher across the states. And I think teacher can always help teacher, right? Like I did this in my class today. Well, you might want to try that. Like just as like down the hall, talk to another teacher. So having this community going in some format, I think will really help. Kurt, I know you have some, you want to jump in next.
Oh, but wait, I just one
Really
last
quick,
thing.
yeah.
One last
Yeah,
thing, quick.
yeah.
So teachers have been remixing the daily curriculum, and like Wanda and Raquel have all and their peers have all these great ideas. We've taken a lot of those ideas and put them on the website. So for every lesson you go to in the daily curriculum, you'll see the lesson name, the activity materials all ready to go. And then there's teacher modifications. And you can see all of these teachers from across the country have like made it more relevant and accessible right there. So you can see some cool stuff on the website. everydayai.org.
There we go. That's normally
Kurt.
what we ask at the end, and we want to get to that. But given this age of budgets, how are you funded and what does the future hold? Are there things that you want to add to the program that you haven't included yet, or places that you'd like to include? Do you have a future plan, and is how sustainable is this? How is it funded?
We were originally funded as an iTest for innovation technology education through the National Science Foundation. The National Science Foundation supported the development of the curriculum and the Everyday IPD. And now Everyday AI is its own organization, and it's run by Irene Lee. People are welcome to find the website and contact Irene. And we're working with local districts and states to provide professional development through the Everyday AI model. But as you said, as I said, there's a large model and there's a tailored model that makes a little bit of a lighter lift, all research-based, that we'd be really happy to work with districts and communities to bring. So please go to the website and find Irene Lee, and she can help you get started.
Is there any discussion of next components?
As I've said, we're very excited about this new unit on large language models as part of the curriculum. And we're really excited about piloting versions of the Everyday AI project, which still keep those research-based powerful components, but make it a little bit of an easier lift for administrators or districts to lead within their region.
Wanda or Racquel, you have a final comment for us?
I guess for those listening that the AI curriculum is not a heavy lift. Jump right into it. It's relevant. The kids are gonna love it, and it's just a great opportunity to get the foundation of AI learning.
And it's here to stay. I mean, it's just how we deal with it. And this curriculum gives you a good foundation. And the more we know, the more we'll be able to, use it in your everyday life.
Well, my co-host might want to say a final comment or two before I quickly introduce the next show.
No, just thank you so much for joining and sharing the amazing, wonderful work that you do. This is incredibly important. And I'm so glad that, you're looking at, Kate, at the sustainability of it long term. I'm glad that question came up because we are at a time of ambiguity. Let me put it that way. That's the most positive word I could use in this context in terms of federal funding and things that way for some of this critical work. So all the best. And thank you again for what you do.
Lydia.
I echo the same sentiments. And yeah, thank you for being the pioneer and doing the groundwork and really transforming education for our kids every day.
I second and third that. Kate, look like you have something, a final 15-second comment for us.
What we've found from Everyday AI is that teachers are incredible at teaching AI literacy education in their classrooms. When we compare machine learning experts and curriculum developers running this daily curriculum in a controlled environment, they have this incredible effect on learning, but it's not as strong as when teachers bring the curriculum into their classroom. There's something that teachers know about their students and their interests that have really made daily really take off. So if there's one finding from the research we found from Everyday AI, it's that teachers are great at teaching AI literacy in their classrooms.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Wanda. Thank you, Racquel. It's been a great show. I'm going to use this in my own class, to be honest, and I'm sure others will as well. We're coming upon a special 224, is it right? 225. So 226 and 227 will be anniversary shows. We have the 5-year anniversary show next week, and the guests, we don't even know the guests yet. To be determined, but there'll probably be prior guests that have been on this show. We've been chatting about different folks that we could have on the show, but that will be next Saturday at noon. The following week will be the co-hosts will come back together to reflect on the 5 years of shows that we've had and talk about the future and where we're going this year and beyond. So come listen to us then. Listen to this show, have your students discuss it, celebrate it. Thank you, everyone.